Hi there. Welcome to Life Between Coasts, the podcast where we dive into our personal journeys connected through synchronicity. So grab your coffee, light a candle, and let's begin. I'm your host, Leah, and we're glad you're here. Today, we're sitting down with Melissa. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
I'm very excited to have this conversation today because I've got to see a lot of change. Let's just say that. I've known you since your mom first started coming in for taxes. So let's say late teenager as you were becoming an adult on your own. And so tell me, I know I'm familiar with the family dynamic. So tell me a little bit about your family.
Well, it's really interesting because for my mom, I'm the youngest.
Mhm.
For my dad, I'm in the middle.
Okay.
And so I think that definitely made an impact. I know that's a cliche that your personality gets molded around where you are in the birth order.
Right.
But I definitely noticed that, I think everybody else assumes that the youngest is spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I'm sure I do fit that, even though I might be unaware. But I noticed where the youngest is also kind of the observer. You look up, you look like, what is everybody doing wrong? What's creating a lot of strife? And you can kind of also feel like you're the one that has to actually steady the ship the most
Mm-hmm.
because everybody else is kind of flying a little bit more blind than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And like I definitely noticed. So the biggest thing that I really recognized when I went to therapy for the first time, second time, but with a really good therapist. It felt like the first time I was like,
no, and that's true. A paid professional listener is not a bad thing.
Right.
Have somebody to just listen to you just talk out loud.
Yeah.
And be completely objective. Or, yeah, is that right? Objective or subjective?
Somewhere in there.
But to be non-biased.
Yes, to be non-biased. And what I really liked about therapy was I was just like, I liked that it was like, I know something's not right.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like figure it out. And then even if you figure it out, what do I do about it? And so all of those things that are kind of like not matching. And I had a background. My parents were prided themselves on being mentally strong.
Mm-hmm.
They've never been to a therapist, don't ever want to go to a therapist.
Okay.
And for them, it was actually very much a sign of weakness if you're like, I just want to go talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't ones. My mom will just absolutely shut down if you even try talking about the past. Like she just is like, but what do you, I don't understand. It's the past. It doesn't matter why you live in. She doesn't get why people do autobiographies and start kind of telling their story. That's just not anything she cares to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting is I was the first one in my immediate family that was like, I'm going to go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly it was because I was like, I'm sad. I don't know why I'm sad. Or I go through periods where everything's going great and I'm lovely. And then, I just don't know what's like going on. And that had a lot to do with kind of being like, I remember my therapist for the first time was like, oh, well, your parents were divorced. How did that affect you? I was like, didn't affect me at all. I was like, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like,
Right.
And she's like, how old were you? I was like, I was 5. And she's like, And I was like, I'm good. I'm really good. And looping that together, what I actually realized through that journey of like just kind of even like poking at my parents' divorce
Mm-hmm.
was I settled into the role of I've got to make everything fine. So everything's fine.
Right.
Divorce was fine. Everything was great. And she's like, but everything's not great.
Right.
She's like, you had a lot of anger. You just directed other places. I had a lot of anger at men.
Mm-hmm.
And I would absolutely unconsciously do things to try to hurt men.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that went to my parents' divorce and just my father having the other woman became my stepmom,
Mm,
you know,
mhm.
and my dad was very manipulative in that he wanted us to make it all fine for him.
Okay.
It was like we weren't allowed to be upset. My mom went out the door, my stepmom came in because when she left, he needed someone to watch us. And now that I'm more, mature, I was like, well, what the hell were we doing knowing everything that was going on anyways?
Right.
I was like, I was 5. I should not have known. Well, yeah, you're the other woman when I don't even really kind of understand what
What
that
that
is.
yes, what is the other woman?
Yeah. And I liked my stepmom. I love my stepmom.
Mhm.
As a child, I'm like, well, I like you, but you're causing a lot of strife and a lot of pain. And
Right.
I feel very conflicted and guilty about that. And also learning, I was taking on a lot of my mom's battles as well, that children who kind of get dragged into a divorce inevitably kind of do. You
Yep.
end up picking a side. And that was, well, my dad's the villain and my mom's the good guy. And particularly for young girls. Young
Mhm.
girls, you kind of see the dynamic and you're like, my mom's the side that I'm taking,
Yeah. I can
because
see that.
you hurt my mom and I as a woman are somehow connecting to this even though I'm not aware of it.
Right.
Um, and so all of that dynamic, I felt a lot of pressure because my older sister did not handle it well at all.
Okay.
Tommy was Tommy. He really didn't give a damn either way. It's just like,
Right, right.
just like whatever. Um, which is very him. And then Nick just also was not dealing with it very well. Nick was really confused and angry, and it came out in the form of violence.
Okay.
He was just angry. And they finally put him in football where he could like tackle a kid.
So right. And it worked out. He did quite well with that.
And he did
So,
quite well because it was just anger and where my thing was, which is everything's fine.
yes.
Everything's great. And so
And
I
you
I
keep pushing everything down.
everything got pushed down and
Mhm.
everything got pushed down and everything got pushed down and it bubbled up in other ways. It bubbled up in a lot of antisocial behavior.
Mhm.
I don't like any of you guys. I don't want to be around any of you. I don't feel like I have a voice and you even really give a damn to hear what I have to say anyways.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking it was a lot of antisocial behavior.
Right.
And on top of that, just not feeling very understood.
Mhm.
Um, it was so funny. I was thinking this as I was getting dressed this morning. How I was like, look, I got a lot of stuff today. I'm gonna just throw on some stuff and schlub around. And when I was coming into my pubescent era, and I wasn't developing the way my family thought that I should have,
Mhm.
or even society,
Mhm.
your femininity gets attacked
Mhm.
because it's supposed to look and sound and act one way.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know what diverted my brain to this,
Right.
but all of it was just coming into I feel very misunderstood. I don't feel like I have a voice that anybody cares to listen to, and I'm subtracting a little bit from just all of you. Um,
And so, but you started to recognize that,
yes.
so how long did you start to believe those words where you could start to pull yourself back and say, I need to find me?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do that? Did it take you, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
There's a seed that gets planted
Yeah.
and then you start thinking and then it starts twirling in your brain and it starts to grow. And then you
Mhm.
start to say, I need to go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I need to get this out of me. And that way I can release it or
Mhm.
surrender or do whatever and say, I need to take my life back and be present and have control of it.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? How did I find that? So what was your point that made you want to do that?
It was probably 24, 25.
Okay.
I was just I was in this place where you start kind of going, "Well, I'm not a kid anymore."
Right.
And certain emotions I thought was, "Oh, you're a moody teenager." You know? A moody teenager, you could get depressed sometimes, everything. And when I was hitting my mid-20s and I thought, like, I kinda still feel like I'm there,
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I was maturing.
Okay.
And I definitely didn't feel like I was emotionally in some kind of, self-governing place.
Right.
And that was when I was just like, I don't feel safe going to any of you. So let me go to talk to someone else.
Right.
And that was really kind of, and I'd gone the first time. Eh,
And you do have to be compatible.
yeah.
It is like an interview. It's like an interview for anything, just
Yeah.
like a job, or if you're hiring a builder or a realtor or whomever.
Yeah.
When you find, I mean, I've talked to personally probably have half a dozen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And there was a couple that just weren't compatible.
Yeah.
And it just, you felt awkward. You couldn't talk about certain things, or you felt that you couldn't talk about certain things,
Yeah.
even though they were supposed to be completely unbiased, but something just didn't feel right.
Yeah. You're like, and mind you, if you go to therapy the first 2 times, you're not, nothing's
Mm.
really gonna get. A lot of it is, who are you? Like, how do I fit around you?
Yes.
Introduction. Start with the baby stuff first.
Yep.
And then once you're kind of past that, you're like, okay, is this just, do I see anything going here? And then when I stopped, and then the, kind of kickstart to my wanting to go again
Mhm.
was in my late 20s. And I was like, all right, I'm going to never have a romantic relationship that I feel safe and comfortable and happy with, and I can grow with someone unless I address this. It
Mhm.
was just like, my lack of, I understood now a little bit more what exactly it was. And it
Right.
was, I don't feel safe being vulnerable with anybody.
Mhm.
I feel like I have to be perfect and in control, and, I can't let anybody in.
Mhm.
And I think dating and seeing, the failures of dating.
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah, and just understanding a little
Hard.
bit of, okay, I don't know how to really connect with any of these men on a really deep level because I won't let anybody in.
Mhm.
And then it was like, okay, like, you better figure this shit out or you're never going to figure this out. And I went back, found a really good therapist. I could just tell the difference, that there was a little bit of like a there was more chemistry.
Mhm.
And we started, and I also was like, "Hey, I'm here for this." I could voice that a little bit more. I was like, "I want a romantic relationship, and I want a partnership, and I want to get married, and I need to kind of unravel where a lot of this just disconnect is coming from."
Right.
And then that inevitably led into the, "Oh, so wait, tell me about your parents' marriage," and stuff like that. I'm like, "Everything was fine. What are you talking about?" You know?
Right.
And then that's when that kind of it was able to go and massage that kind of, raw nerve
Right.
in a lot of ways. And, like, the real core thing actually was, for me, was, um, in a weird way, the thing that I actually was kinda like, "Well, I'm lonely." That was it, but you're kind of separated from it emotionally.
Mhm.
That was a raw nerve for me, which
Mhm.
was, I don't feel close to anybody. And I am terrified of people leaving me. So my antisocial behavior was actually a protection. I was
If
able
you
to get,
Yeah.
yeah, if I
Sorry.
push you away, you can't push me away.
Right. Build a wall
Yeah.
around your heart, around your brain. You protect yourself. You have your boundaries, and then you have your moat around your boundaries,
Yeah.
and then you extend that further, and you don't let anyone in.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. That's what you think
That's
is
what
the
you
best way.
think. That's how a teenager copes with, that emotional kind of landmine.
Mhm.
And then it was like, okay, great. It's all of my coping mechanisms ultimately need to go away if I can get what I want.
Yes.
And I was like, "Fuck." Once, like, was like, "Are you kidding me?" Um, and that is it, that's a process, and I don't want to give anybody any illusion that that's simple.
Yes.
There's times you don't wanna get out of the bed because 'cause you're like, "I feel like a raw nerve,
Mhm.
and I feel incredibly vulnerable, and I feel incredibly sad," and all of that stuff you don't deal with
Mhm.
comes back up,
Mhm.
and now you don't have those self-defense things there. 'Cause you're trying to get those out of the way so you can address that, and it isn't easy. It's an ebb and flow, like.
Well, and did you find that, like, even when you looked in the mirror, you were
Mhm.
critical of everything of yourself during those periods of
Yeah,
time as well? Everything, you couldn't do anything right, you didn't look right, your hair didn't do what you wanted it to do, and everything was wrong.
yeah,
But then when you start to realize that you have to talk to yourself in a
Mhm.
positive way, because because you have to love yourself and have
Yeah.
your own self-worth first
Mhm.
before you can share it with somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's the egg that you had to crack, I'm certain of it.
Yeah.
To find that not, two people can love each other and have a family, but might not remain in love, and
Yeah.
it's okay. But, it is very impactful on children.
But I mean, it was overall, like, it was friendship, it was family, it was romantic relationships, it was I don't feel like any of my relationships are what I needed them to be.
Right.
I, in many ways, was terrified of putting proper boundaries up because I thought, the second I do, people are gonna go away. And
Mhm.
some do. Absolutely.
They do.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I endured absolute abuse in my family. There was a lot of just verbal abuse,
Mhm.
and some physical. Not sexual, but physical. And just, no one knew how to communicate about any of their feelings. No one knew how to, um, we knew how to scream and yell and fight and attack one another. No one knew how to say I'm hurt.
Mhm.
And a lot of that did stem from my parents, and just their dysfunction.
Mhm.
And I feel for my sister because my sister's gotten stuck in, well, that's normal. Like all of her relationships look like my parents' relationship when
Mhm.
they were together.
Mhm.
I took the opposite route, which was I want nothing to do with any of this,
Right.
you know? Um, and ironically, it does start going, okay, you have to start kind of finding something to grab a hold of for self-love.
Mhm.
Something.
Right.
And I thought, because I was narcissistic, that's self-love. You know?
It's different.
It's different,
It is different.
Even vanity is different than self-love.
It is.
And when I realized, like, oh, I like myself.
Mhm.
I was like, I like myself. I like spending time with myself.
Mhm.
And finding those little moments of putting some boundary up for how people can talk to you or can
Mhm.
treat you, or all of those little things, they do start pulling back a little bit of that control
Mhm.
that you feel like you are completely out of control as a child or a teenager. And so you look for control in other ways,
Right.
either food or exercise or drugs or any of those things that kind of teenagers naturally fall into.
Mhm.
Many of us are just looking for control because we have zero control for so many years about your home,
Exactly.
how you can look or how you can dress or, how you can be in the world. It's like you don't have any control over that.
Well, and that's where I always go back and say that, 0 to 18, your parents, they have you, right?
Yeah.
They have your back, they have the roof over your head, they have the control over how you're dressed, make sure you're in school, do the things that you're supposed to do. Your 20s are going to be a complete mess.
Yep.
So that 18, that 12 years for your 20s, you're just figuring it out, because
Yeah.
now you really have to fumble through it.
Mhm.
So the things that you may not have learned at home, now you have to teach yourself, but you have no idea how to teach yourself or where to find the answer.
Yeah.
And so you might turn down the wrong street or the wrong corner
Mhm.
a time or two, but as long as you learn from that stumble and pick yourself back up and keep going, that's the key.
Yeah.
And then I always go on to say that the 30s, you put your puzzle pieces together, things start working and clicking and moving in the right direction. And
Yeah.
in your 40s, you're where I'm at.
Mm.
I'm going to be 47, and I look at the love of myself, and not a narcissistic way,
Yeah.
but I'm content with where I'm at. I'm comfortable in my skin,
Mhm.
and if somebody comes at me and says that they don't like me, I wish them well and explain that it's their loss,
Yep.
that I'm not in their life because I'm a pretty cool person,
Yeah.
and that's how it is. Whatever they hate or whatever they want to deflect or put to me, I just push back, because I'm
Yeah.
not it if it doesn't affect my life, if it doesn't affect how I live or how I make money, then it can't affect
Yeah.
me at all.
And a big piece also was, oh, this isn't even about me.
Right.
Like, when I was able to kind of disconnect all of the criticism that was directed towards me about my appearance,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh, my mom and my dad, you're the ones with the issues."
Well, if we can we open that door
Yeah.
a little bit? Let's talk about your appearance.
Okay.
So let's talk about your racial mix.
Yes.
So your father is?
White.
white, your mother is
Black.
black.
Mhm.
And what were some of the things that you were I know we've had conversations like
Mhm.
this, so I don't know how deep you wanna take it, but you can go surface if you want, but just some of the things that you felt, some of that criticism and things
Yeah.
that we've talked about.
Oh, absolutely. Neither of them like their size. My mom would always look at my thighs and go, "Oh, you have my thighs." So I was thunder thighs, and it was affectionately criticism and a joke.
Mhm,
And, my dad came from curvy Italians,
mhm,
so when I was able to, of course, I remember one day my therapist was like, "Well, what was your parents' relationship with self-image and food?" I was like, "I don't know, my dad was weird. Like, we would go out to dinner and he wouldn't eat. And
mm.
then he would, like, kind of just pick off of all our foods." And she's like, "Oh, he had an eating disorder." I was like, "No." And she's like, "No."
Yeah,
He had an eating disorder. It doesn't have to be bulimia or not eating at all to be disordered thinking around food
yes.
and control and self-image and things like
Mhm,
that. And, uh, and she said, "From everything else you've told me, they were very hard on you kids about your size." I was like, "Yeah, like, if we would get weighed, and if we were too heavy, we had to run." You know? And
mhm,
and that was, to my dad, very normal because and everything was held behind this kind of, "Oh, it's about, health, and we just want you to be healthy." And people hide out in the regular world about behind that bullshit too.
mhm.
Lizzo's just not healthy. We want her to be healthy." There's a lot of thin girls walking around here who might have an issue, and you don't care about them, and you don't see them.
Right.
Don't hide behind some veneer of sympathy and compassion when you're an asshole.
Yes.
And I love to call people out about that now. You don't give a damn about that person's health.
Right.
It could be healthy. Maybe we need to lose some pounds, but at the end of the day, you don't like looking at it. And you believe how a lot of other people believe. If I mistreat you, I can get you to do something about the behavior.
Mhm.
And that's what I experienced,
Right.
where you're not developing, as thin as people should as a teenager and, went
Mhm.
through a chubby stage. And then it was, "Oh, if we could start bullying you, you'll make sure you just naturally keep up with these things." Or, if I can control what you're eating and all of these things. And that behavior kicked up really when I was a teenager and constant criticism.
Mhm.
Um, and so that also kind of was like, I remember, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago. My therapist was like, "It's so funny. Your family seems to, congratulate you on a high self-esteem as if they gave it to you." And I was like, "Yeah, but they're also narcissistic, you know?
Mhm.
And sometimes parents think if I was tough on you and you're strong as a result, that's a result of me." I
Mhm.
was like, "No, it's not. You don't get to take credit for that. I could have easily turned into a drug addict and an alcoholic
Mhm.
and had, and abused myself routinely and allowed other people to abuse me.
Yes.
My strength is a result of me
Yeah.
and me going inward and finding, the tenacity and the ability to, rebound and, prosper and things like that. That's me.
Mhm.
Like, I had a choice in that. None of that is you,
Mhm.
you know? There are things I will 100% give my parents credit for, but my inner strength is not one,
Right.
especially from my bullies. It's just,
Yes.
and maybe, they would completely have a different view of that.
Mhm.
I'm sure, parents look at their children and go, "I never bullied you." And I'm like, "Well, you're free to think that now, aren't you?"
Right. Well, and like you said, it could be in just little things, it's like, I can remember it and, mostly of it is, you think of the jokes, but the jokes still land
Mm,
and, again, plant a seed of self-doubt or whatever it might come from it,
yeah.
so I would say something to my dad like, "Oh, dad, do you think I'm pretty?" And
Mhm.
he's like, "Of course, honey, I think you are, but compared to what?"
Yeah.
And it's like,
Wow.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, dad. Appreciate that,
Yeah.
and so then you plant that little seed or something, and then, and even times, when my mister would say something about an ex-girlfriend being smoking hot or something like
Yeah.
that, and then he might and I'll say, "Oh, okay, then what am I?" And he'll say, "Oh, you're unique."
Yeah.
And it's like, "Ooh, that one doesn't land so hot either, buddy," and
When you
so
learn the code words.
yeah. Yeah. But after nearly 18 years, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So, then, then I joke about his bulbous nose or something like that, you know, but that's okay. But we have gotten to a point where
Mhm.
it truly is a joke now, but it did hurt the first couple times that, it's like, "Well, do you think I'm pretty?" Or,
Mhm.
and then he turns it or says something like, I wouldn't be with you much attracted to you." It's like, don't you dare gaslight me.
Exactly. So now it's like, I mean, I'm not saying that.
It's like, but so you have to recognize what's being said and how it's being said. And my dad probably didn't mean much by it, but because he took a lot of verbal abuse and things,
Yeah.
growing up as a kid too, because he was the quote unquote bastard child
Yeah.
because he was adopted. And so I know his uncles were pretty mean to him. They even had a little nursery rhyme that they sang to him.
Wow.
I would sing it once in a great while when I got mad at him, and he'd look at me like, "Don't ever do that again." But,
Yeah.
they used to say, "David Kalish, you're no good. Chop you up as firewood and feed you to the fishies." Yeah.
That's
So,
like murderous.
yeah. So that was when he was, like, less than 5, 6 years old, somewhere right in there.
That's
So
pretty cruel. Yeah.
that taints your brain, So it's just like putting limiting, beliefs into children and
Yeah.
and the capabilities of people.
And thinking that it's not supposed to affect a child. That was also kind of what's messed up.
Right.
And with me, for some reason, it was, well, you are so strong. We never thought any of this would impact you. And
Right.
you're like, so you thought it was okay to keep doing it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And admitting that I was human and I'm like, I'm a human being.
Mhm.
And people talking shit about how I look
Mhm.
doesn't feel good.
Right.
Especially at that age when all you want to do really is kind of be pretty and, and be chosen and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And in a weird way, my lack of vanity was starting to work against me,
Right.
which was always also a good thing though.
Right.
Like you're down to earth and like really chill and you're not vain.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like, but if you could, and I mean that's a whole thing about, being a young woman is people give you all of these contradictions and tell you to hit both.
Yeah.
Be down to earth and be, cool, but and one of the guys and everything, but also be pretty and kind of be
Mhm.
untouchable and
Mhm.
but be funny and
Mhm.
be charming, but be stoic and kind of, withdrawn and eat a burger every time you go out to dinner, but also be really thin and
Right.
and eat like
It's
a real person.
right. No,
Yeah.
it is difficult to meet the checklist of the expectations of other people.
Yeah.
So that's I think the best thing to do is start to set the expectations for yourself. What do you expect out of you?
Yeah.
And if you meet your own expectations of what you expect out of you, then the others have to then they have to begin to meet you at your expectations,
Yeah.
and then you can start having expectations for them and say, I hold myself to this standard. I'm going to start holding you to this standard. I don't appreciate it when you do those things or say those things.
Yeah.
And this is how it makes me feel. And let's move on because I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm going to forgive you for all the times that you said it to me because I'm not going to let that drain me because
Yeah.
all that does is drain my energy and eat my time or
Yeah.
take space up in my brain. And I'm not going to let it continue to affect me. So I'm letting
Yeah.
that go and moving forward.
And that's what's beautiful. And then like I always want to give like hope. I was talking to a girl in her 20s at dinner, my coworkers, well, both of them are in 20s, but you could tell emotionally one's in a little bit more of a secure place than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can tell she's like, she still cares how other people view her decisions about love and romance and her pace and all of these other things. And I was like, fuck them, And I was like, but you know what? I tell you that now as a woman in her 30s. If someone had told me in my 20s, I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? Like,
Yes.
how do you completely divorce from that? I'm
Right.
still learning.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've gotten to is it's not about me. There's so many people who are dealing with their own shit and they can't deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. They don't know how to go internal, so they project it out into
Right.
the rest of the world. That's just how that works.
Right.
It's unfortunate we see someone in their 50s doing it, but you're also like they're getting to a point where they're like, I am what I am, and it is what it is.
But I think that we all have some amount of change that we can put into place. And a lot of it is just the basic things, just removing ourselves, from that the evils of social media, the screen, the numbness of
Yeah.
the screen. So I always go back to that.
That made a big
Giving,
difference.
just giving grace to other people because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
But understanding that, what we see on the internet, and that one, nobody has a perfect life. If they do, there's something wrong because you know what? We can look at that social media and we can say, look, they have that big house and look, they have the perfect kids and they have the beachfront and they have that perfect little poochie dog or whatever. And we can dream that we want that, but
Mhm.
behind closed doors, you don't know what's going on.
At all.
They might not have a relationship at all. They might be two strangers that live in the same house for
Mhm.
appearances,
That both wanted
or
kids.
right.
People get there, they just want kids, and then they settle down with whoever can give them kids at that period of their life,
Right.
and
So there's a lot of
yeah.
things. So, just because they might have the money, the house, the cars, the fancy lifestyle, or the perfect life on Instagram or wherever it might be, in reality, it's not. There is something that's wrong. There is no, it's just like AI creating an image. There's
Yep.
always going to be something wrong with it. And that's what life is. There's
Yep.
always going to be a bump. There's always going to be a challenge,
Mhm.
but it's just how we pull through it.
I mean, the amount of people I've heard, like, it's all lovey and dovey and great, and then the second they break up or divorce, all of a sudden, like, "Well, he was on drugs, and then this was going
I know you
on,"
hear all the bad side.
and all of a sudden, all the bad stuff, and it's like, so you were just bullshitting everybody for a long the whole time. Eh, no, he never brushed his teeth, like, well, there was this little issue of him drinking a lot, like, that pops up, and you're like, "Oh, so he's an
Uh,
alcoholic. Yes, this would be a
yeah.
problem."
Yeah, we should know
Yeah,
these things. But
but no, nobody broadcasts that,
right.
you know?
Well, and I think we all wear masks, and so that's where part of this with me, I totally have just tried to, like, peel that off and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is me. This is what you get."
But also, the world's
You like
so intolerant of imperfections and looking for ways
Yeah,
to be offended. I saw this is going on right now. Timothy Chalamet criticized ballet and opera, and it's like, okay, he had an opinion. You don't It's now a multiple kind of country offended. It's gotta talk about by this person and this person, like, so someone having the opinion that in their generation, the typical 24-year-old isn't going to ballet and opera. This is actually mind-blowing to you, and you're getting this offended?
right.
But
Well,
but
it's
that's what we're dealing with, where everyone feels like if I don't project that constant perfect, I'm gonna, mind my P's and Q's, I can get canceled, this can happen on these are all these
Mhm.
consequences now, and it's like, so that's his opinion. It needed to be as simple as, I don't agree with that. I don't think he's very well versed, or he's, in a different crowd. He's dating a Kardashian. A lot of people will say, well, who cares about the Kardashians now?
Right,
It,
and so a lot of that, and if you look and you look at how somebody has displayed their life out in the public eye like that, there is a lot of criticism and things that go through that. But then when we come back to for you, let's say, and so you see that on TV and you see what they think or what let's say quote unquote
yeah.
the norm should be or the normal beauty or what the look should be, that curvaceous look or the perfect makeup, the spray tan. But then it's known that they don't post anything unless it's been touched up prior to. So we know that there's filters that are applied to that
Yeah.
and that's almost impossible to actually ever achieve.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's a specimen. There's a lot of beautiful creatures, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that there's a perfect specimen out there.
Yeah,
Uh,
and most of them, it is an illusion, and I think also what the tough is when you're a young girl, you are looking at very flawed older women who are under a lot of pressure
right.
to also look perfect and pretty and all of these things, and there's this stuff, and you don't see any of that. You just see, the end result is you look great.
Yeah.
You know?
I was a the lanky toothpick, or beanpole or whatever, because I was the girl that shot up really fast at
Mhm.
height. So I was taller than all the boys. I was taller. Oh, are you on the dive team? Well, we don't have a pool. Sorry. I didn't, high school didn't have the year after I graduated, they got one. So I didn't get to participate, but.
And it brought up the Timothy Chalamet, and even the people on social media who are presenting their lives this way. It's not a criticism, even if it maybe came off. It's compassion.
It
It's like,
is.
I get how you want to appear.
Right.
I get it. I was
Hmm.
there. I still feel that
Hmm.
sometimes where I show up to work, my worst self is not gonna be on display.
No.
Everything's gonna go great. I'm
Yep.
gonna That's professionalism.
Hmm.
That whatever's going on in my personal life, I don't have a right to bring it into work because it's not their problem.
Right.
And what's going on in their personal life isn't my problem. So you know how to separate. And particularly when you are an influencer, think of yourself as a social media presence or everything, you present you understand that on some level that's your job.
Yes.
And actresses and singers, that's when they're on display, that's their job to look a certain way and present themselves and tell a certain story and brand.
Right.
I get it. And I think that level of compassion I just didn't have because a lot of people also attack like, you know,
Mhm.
women for, constantly, well, you're trying to influence young women to aspire to something that's not real. It's
Right.
like that woman's under the same amount of pressure to
Mhm.
aspire to something that's not real and create an icon and an image and a brand. It's like everybody's under the same pressure.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, everyone does not want to show their worst self and the messiness.
Well, no, and there's different degrees, of the microscope that we're each under.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're a public figure, they're definitely going to be much more, indiscriminate about their criticism, and the way that somebody is, I've always been somebody because I'm just such I try to be as neutral, in all areas just
Yep.
because I just wanna be a human. That's all.
Mhm.
That's my checkbox. What are you? Human.
Yep.
Check. That's me. And, so when I see an artist or an actor or, whomever, use their platform
Mhm.
for or even, let's even say, a pastor or somebody of the church use their pulpit for something, say a political thing where you
Yeah.
potentially can get canceled or
Mhm.
whatever. It's like I want you to stay in your lane because you've perfected a craft and that's what you're great for. And
Yeah.
I just really don't need your opinion because it doesn't affect my life. And I think that's where it's given me some fire, and I've said this a few times to some people too, is just because you see, especially from the church side,
Mhm.
when you take an oath to love all of God's children,
But you
and you really don't. And then you publish like on your political journey or whatever,
Yeah.
either side, it doesn't matter what team you're playing for.
Mhm.
But you open that door and now you hate half of the country
Yep.
or you hate half of God's children in your country.
Exactly.
And you took that oath that you loved all of God's children, so I can't believe you because you lied. And
Yeah.
that's how I feel. And it's just like and that's where I'm like, "Let's save humanity, come on.
Yeah.
Let's do it because, we're more alike than we are different."
But it's very bizarre. Like you have these people who go, "You're a basketball player, not a political figure. Shut up and dribble a ball." And then I look at the people criticizing. I was like, "But it's not your job to criticize these people either. But you're free with your opinions about that
Yeah.
person."
So we should stop criticizing each other
Yeah.
and
Like,
just know that we're human and live peacefully
yes.
together, period.
And what I like, getting off of social media was a game changer for me. I don't need it. I don't want it. I had like a second where I was like, because I was talking to a friend, I was like, I'm being asked to be on a podcast. I really want to do it. There's a part of me that doesn't want to do it because I don't know what to talk about. And she's like, talk about how you don't want to be on a podcast anymore.
Yes.
And I'm happy to be here. It's not that.
Oh, no, but you start to think like, "Oh gosh, am I interesting enough? What
Yeah.
what do I say? What do I do?"
And I was just like, vulnerability has never typically been my thing. So I'm happy that I'm able to even just be here and sharing this.
Yeah.
And this is like such a milestone for me because normally like 10 years ago I've been like, I'm not talking about myself.
No.
I'll talk about anything else
No,
except myself.
and I think it's good that we opened this door because I think that there is a journey here because so, I like I said, I watched you for the last decade or so, or more than. And so you can see the differences of, the different jobs that you've carried, how you've the different ideals and I think that part of your personality is that you are such a deep thinker. You're
Yep.
very philosophical and everything. So everything has to have some sort of deep meaning to it. And
Yeah.
so you find it difficult just to be able to just scratch the surface. You've got to find what layer and how deep and how many, and all of this. And so I can see the dynamic between yourself and your siblings,
Yeah.
how you're the deep thinker, whereas your brother would definitely be um
Swimming in the shallow part of the pond.
He's but, well, not even that, but then and even your sister, she's an aspiring actress, and she's done some movies and things like that, so you each have a very different lane that you're in.
Yeah.
And how you even in our most recent conversation outside of this was, that he finds it difficult to talk to you because you're almost unapproachable in ways.
Yes.
And that's part of that that mask that you
Yep.
throw up, and then you put up that, and then you build your wall and put your moat in place and everything, and you don't let anybody in.
Yeah.
And so it's good to see that they talking with a therapist to
Mhm.
help you to become a little bit more self-aware about those things
Yeah.
and start to just kind of take a deep breath and relax.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the hardest thing to find out about yourself. It's like, okay, now how do I let people in?
Yeah, like, you have to, and then it's hard because you have to go against the very thing you're kinda terrified of doing, which is being hurt,
Yes.
and being vulnerable and having it used against you, or
Yeah.
all of those things, and what is a nice buffer is self-love,
Mhm.
compassion for yourself and other people,
Mhm.
and it starts with yourself. Like, when I
Yes.
was able to get compassion for myself, I could have it with other people, and I have it with my parents now. I'm like, "Well, what's going on in your head?
Mhm.
Like, what must be that like?" And you trying to cope with all of your life challenges and things in your childhood.
It's perspective.
It's perspective. And so
Mhm.
sometimes I feel bad if I'm like, being just very blunt about my opinion about my parents and some of the things they've done and actions they've had. I have nothing but compassion for them. And I do have love for my parents, very deep love. I also now go, but these are my boundaries with you.
Yes.
It's gonna be good for me. It's gonna be for our good for our relationship.
Yes.
Because I have a lot of compassion for just being like, "Oh my god, yeah, it must have been really tough to be my mom at certain places and raising 4 kids and having a really tough marriage." And, the things my father exposed her to and how my father acted. And it also must have been really tough for my father to think, "Well, I don't get why I can't have both."
Right.
I don't get why I can't have everything I want. And also my father in his own way had a very, very it was very progressive,
Mhm.
which he doesn't get enough credit for, at that time dating a black woman.
Mhm.
It wasn't, the 1800s,
Right.
but it was not something that was widely done.
Right.
And frankly, it was something where you would have a white wife and sleep with a black mistress.
Mhm.
Like, that was more common.
Okay.
Um, and so I don't know if I've ever given my father credit for that, being like, "You were bold," and kind of, that's where I see myself and my dad and me, is we're both kinda like, "I'm gonna do my own lane." But then I also see where my father's completely, conformed, and I won't conform.
Right.
Um, and kind of, his level of, "I'm gonna do my own thing." I respect that about my dad, and I don't think I've told him enough of the things I respect about him, or even sometimes my mom. My mom's a very strong person, and she's had to be, and I am grateful for that, you know?
And I think that demonstration of being strong is
Mhm.
helpful.
Yes.
But the idea that you've been able to also open up that box that you've pushed everything into and let some of that out, kind of like cleaned out the closets and
Yeah.
things is very helpful, and that's probably something that she needs to do, um, because I think she'd feel just a weight off of her
Yeah.
shoulders,
Yep.
but she's a great person just the same.
Absolutely, and I
So
think mom
she's a doll.
stuck in survivor mode for
Yeah.
a lot of
Well,
years.
when you're constantly bracing,
Yep.
that's what you do. Brace, 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 brace. So so it's now she needs to start just kind of like moving.
Yeah.
So that ties into the book, of course, that we're working on, called Swaying with the Trees. So
Mhm.
how to bend and not break,
Yeah.
and doing a little bit more of that instead of bracing for impact.
Mhm.
Just let the wind blow through us. It's gonna pass,
Let it go.
it's gonna pass. Just let it
Yeah.
go and we'll stand upright again. We'll be okay. That's the key. So now where do you find yourself? What's the next chapter? So now we know that you've kind of entered into a little bit of a new career
Mhm.
path.
Yeah.
So you're going towards the travel industry
Yep.
right now, and that's been exciting.
Yes.
So that's a new journey. So you're planning trips and excursions and things
Mhm.
for people, and that's got to be a lot of fun.
It was something that, what happened was I had, like, a mini nervous breakdown, or probably big one, I don't know. But it made me go, "I need to stop everything because something's just not working anymore." And it was a lot of it was my career.
Mhm.
I had achieved everything I was supposed to. I had a good job and everything like that, and I kinda was like, but none of my achievements feel like anything,
Right.
and I had to also kind of integrate that, and I'm still working on that, like, I'm still the girl that was on the dean's list and on national honors. I still have all of these things.
Right.
Why does it feel like I constantly have to keep kind of chasing something,
Right.
even if I'm getting what I'm supposed to be getting and it doesn't feel like anything.
Right.
And that kind of shift of, this isn't working anymore and I can't keep doing things,
Mhm.
that was so helpful for me, and that's what that was. That was that, like, I appreciate that now that
Mhm.
you're my soul was like, "We're done.
Yeah.
We're done. You've done this shit, it's not working anymore.
Yes.
You need to now actually go just do you." And out of that, and taking some time, I was like, "Hmm, I really just naturally love travel
Mhm.
and helping people, and people were coming to me, and it was something that I felt rejuvenated from and not exhausted."
Mhm.
And I was like I sat down and I just plotted it all out.
Mhm.
I put an application in. She got back to me the same day, got the job on the spot. And that was just a sign from the universe, like, this is the path I need to be on.
Yes.
And immediately the work environment was so much better. The boss I had before I absolutely hated.
Mhm.
It was it was accumulation of I hate my job, I hate who I'm working for,
Right. Right.
and all of that.
Compatibility.
Yeah, it was just my soul going, okay, like you've
Yeah.
done, like, do something that makes you happy now.
Right.
And looking forward into that and just continuing to grow and saying, "Hey, I could actually go." I'm kind of going back to when I was a kid and going, "I could do anything I want."
Yes.
I was like,
Yeah.
"I actually could do anything I want. I don't need everybody to like it or understand it. That's okay." If it makes me happy.
Mhm.
And so when I look at the future, I'm just like, I look forward to marriage and kids. I've made so much progress in that way. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to continuing to grow and develop and travel.
Mhm.
I am looking forward to now just saying if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. I don't need to have a grand plan. I don't need to
Mhm.
be, it doesn't have to, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that because I we all have tendencies to get stuck in the planning phases.
Yeah.
So, if we can just break free from that and just say, "You know what? We'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do it."
I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
Mhm.
Um, like there was something I was just like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna apply. I don't know if I'm gonna get it. Don't care. I'm just gonna do it. Yeah.
That was my shift between medical field and the business world. I walked in the front door of the apartment community, that I was living at, and they had a sign on the door that said part-time leasing consultant, and
Yeah.
I walked in and said, "Tell me about that job." And they said, "Well, that's been filled, but we have a full-time."
All right.
Okay. And then, 2.5 years later, I'm managing the place.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was the path that was intended to get me here.
Mhm.
And so, that's how you know when the universe clicks and says, "Yep, you made the right decision."
Even your podcast, I know we were talking a little bit briefly before. It doesn't need to like,
Mm.
okay, so what is like, are you gonna become the next Joe Rogan? It's like, does it feel right?
I'd like his listening audience.
Yeah.
I like to get all of those listeners, all of that, Alex Cooper, all of them. I want all of our listeners because I think this is such an important message.
Yes.
But it doesn't, it's not that. It's
Mhm.
about just connecting humans. It's saying that we're more alike than we're different. It's
Yes.
saying that we just need to give each other grace, that we need to say please and thank you, and we just need to take a deep breath
Yeah.
and pause for just a second
Mhm.
before we continue just to because it's the reaction. It's everybody reacting. The reacting. So I say this constantly. So if two people are reacting, all you're going to do is
Yeah.
continually butt heads. But if one person takes a second to respond,
Mhm.
now all of a sudden you can lower the temperature of the reaction.
Yeah.
And then now you can talk. And it doesn't matter what team you're on. It doesn't matter what side you're on. It doesn't matter what you're arguing
Mhm.
over. But if you start responding to each other,
Yeah.
then you can solve anything. You
Yeah.
can establish that common ground.
Mhm.
Oh, what kind of music do you listen to? Oh, this? Oh, great. I do too. Or, oh, I don't like that, but I like
Yeah.
this. But you can always find something that you're connected, whether it's a parent that you've lost, a similar dog breed, or, just anything. Yeah, anything but the weather.
Stop talking about the weather. We need a better moon in this air.
Find something that means something.
Yeah.
And so that's where the Anthem project comes into
Yeah.
play. And so that's another connection point. So, when I say this is my anthem
Mhm.
and somebody says, "Wow, I really like that song. That inspires me as well."
Yeah.
Now we've connected because of a song. And so that's the key here. So now that as we wrap up the episode today, we always ask, of course,
Yeah.
Melissa, what is your anthem?
Oh, yeah, "Don't Forget About Me," or "Don't You Forget About Me" by Simple Minds.
Oh, I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
I like that song.
definitely.
Now, what inspires what brings that to you?
The Breakfast Club.
Well, I know, yeah, right. I'm just saying, but the movie, I get, the guy attack and all of that, but why does it speak to you? What's it?
What I loved, it was one of the first films I ever saw what I was like, "Oh, I see myself on screen."
Uh,
And there was something about the end when he had that moment of victory and raising his fist,
uh,
and it was kind of like it was a weird moment when that kind of connected for me, and now that song is always in my kind of, like,
uh-huh.
soul as being like it's a song of victory.
Yes.
Like, forget about all the bullshit, forget about my imperfections.
Yep.
Like, don't you forget about me.
Mhm.
Like, the glory of myself as a human being and what my ability is to kind of grow and conquer and it in a
Yes.
weird way, that's what that song has represented for me ever since. It's just like
Mhm.
that moment of victory of just being like, "Don't you forget about me."
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that so much. And we won't. We won't
I got
forget about you. I promise. We promise. And thank you again for joining us on this week's episode of Life Between Coasts. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to grow our community of listeners. We'd like to thank Melissa again for joining us on this week's episode, and we hope you have a great week. And until then, bye bye.
Bye.